speaking of the SEC, though, speaking of that SEC that we saw earlier, we saw the SEC featured in another top 25 matchup as well. This one being Texas. Texas on the road took on Alabama, and what we saw from Texas is, listen, when these two teams went together in Austin, this was a much closer game than what people expected. Bryce Young had to carry them down the field for a last-second field goal, and Alabama won on that last-second field goal. This game, now Texas was able to get a recalibration of expectations. Since then, Texas now finds itself on the road, taking on the Alabama Crimson Tide, and we had some what ifs answered in this game. Quinn Ewers, if you remember what happened in the first meeting between these two teams last season, what we saw between these two teams was Quinn Ewers got hot. He got hot early in that game in Austin, but unfortunately got hurt in the first quarter, and he wasn't able to get on the field since then. Backup quarterback came in. Texas offense couldn't really do much, if anything. Alabama won that way. This time, we saw Quinn Ewers play a little bit longer. And this time, we saw the Texas Longhorns have their starting quarterback for the entire game. And that seemed like it was the difference, if that makes sense. So Texas wins 34-24 in this game. And I think it speaks to how far Texas has come as a program under Steve Sarkisian. It also could mean a downfall of a dynasty. I mean, we've seen Alabama dominate college football throughout the 2010s. And now here we are in 2023. We're in this era of NIL. We got transfer portal, all of this stuff going on right now in our college football universe. And, Alabama, they had some issues at quarterback. So what I was concerned with, granted, their defense was supposed to be pretty good, and we saw what that could mean in their opener against Mid-Tennessee State. But if they were in a shootout, can James Milroe do enough to keep Alabama in the game in these shootouts? And we got our answer. Or at least I think we got our answer, right? I think the answer is no. Now, is this all on James Milrose? No, I don't think that it's all on him. I think there's some things that could have been done offensively from a play calling perspective that could have benefited James Milrose a little bit more. For example, Milrose, he's not known for being that traditional drop back quarterback. He's more of that dual threat athlete who can really make plays with his legs if given the opportunity to do so. The problem is he wasn't really given the opportunity to do so. Alabama went to drop back like they were typically passing the ball. And, Texas defensive line got home. They ended up with 5 sacks in the game. That's, not a good day at the offense for the Alabama offensive line. 9 TFLs to go with it, too. It was a rare time that we saw Alabama be vulnerable. I can't remember the last time Alabama has been vulnerable, right? And it's not just the disadvantage that Alabama had in the trenches. I mean, think about it. When have we seen a game in the 2010s that Alabama had the disadvantage in the trenches in that game? We haven't. Alabama has always dominated in the trenches. Every single game that they played in, it seems like. And it didn't happen today. It did not happen in that particular game. And James Milroe paid for it. 5 sacks that he took in the game. Meanwhile, on the other end, Quinn Ewers had time. Quinn Ewers was not brought to the ground the entire time in the game. No sacks recorded by the Alabama front seven. You hate to see it. And Quinn Ewers went off in this game. This is the type of game that people thought could happen if he played in that entire game last season down in Austin. Quinn Ewers ended up going 24 for 38, 349, 3 touchdowns through the air. That's what I like to call getting that job done. Period. End of story. Quinn Ewers got it done, man. But it's not just about him. I mean, the offensive line created some running room, or at least a decent amount of running room, to at least keep him honest. There wasn't a lot of running room available in this game. Both teams barely had over 100 yards rushing. Texas tried to run it a tad bit more. They were 0.3 yards less per carry than what Alabama had, but Alabama wasn't getting much going on the ground either. But another thing that we saw was a couple of other key factors that ended up allowing Texas to come back and win this game. Because remember, Alabama was actually leading going into that fourth quarter, okay? They were leading going into the fourth quarter. Alabama was once again undisciplined. Texas had 4 penalties that ended up going for 40 yards. Alabama, 10 penalties, 490 yards in this game. It was atrocious for the Alabama Crimson Tide. And when you have penalties like that, there's certain things that you can fix up over the course of the season. But penalties were an issue last year. So it makes you wonder if it can be fixed over the course of the year, because we know Alabama's got tougher teams that they got to go up against, or at least as tough as Texas. Ole Miss being one, Tennessee could be one, LSU could be one as well. And if they even make it to Atlanta, they probably Georgia's waiting for them on the other side. And at least be another top 25 team. Won't be easy navigating for the Crimson Tide. It certainly won't. So what now? Where do we go from here? If you're a Texas fan, by the way, you're probably through the roof right now. The path is clear for you to make it to the college football playoff. You got Wyoming, and we'll talk about that game a little bit later, possibly. And then we'll jump into Big 12 conference play. Alabama, next time out, you go on the road for the first time this season, but you're going on the road against South Florida. Don't know how South Florida was able to get Alabama into their off-campus stadium, but they found a way to make that happen. So, a great win for Texas. This is a signature win that college football playoff committees are talking about when it comes down to where's that signature win. And I think Texas had that signature win Saturday night against Alabama in Tuscaloosa. And Quinn Ewers, not a lot of talk of him about a Heisman Trophy. Maybe not as much as Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, those types of guys. But Quinn Ewers, don't get mistaken, he had his Heisman moment too Saturday night. And if Texas does make the college football playoff or remains in the conversation, Quinn Ewers could be hoisting that trophy too. So Texas, they played more disciplined football. That was the biggest difference in this game, being more disciplined than Alabama. And because of that, Alabama got their first loss of the season.